And welcome to EN 102 Business Writing. This is the second week of the course. And in this week, we're going to be covering process analysis, which is a very common, it's actually a ubiquitous genre in business writing. Because there's a lot of moving parts, there's several assignments as well as several chapters to go through. I'm going to do this in two videos. This video is about the assignments themselves. Before we get going, I want to make certain that I point out one of the resources here, which is about Grammarly. Grammarly is an online writing tool. It helps you check your grammar, your spelling, your punctuation, that sort of thing. You may also be aware that, of course, that most writing word processors such as Google Drive or Microsoft Word, or in this case, uh, LibreOffice, will show you will also have certain built-in tools. For example, if I do some bad grammar like that, it will pop up with a red underline. It'll show that I have too many spaces, that sort of stuff. And I want you to pay attention to those when you work because they do help you see things, but they're not always that accurate. So you want to double check what you're doing. But this will help you get a leg up. It helps you get most of the silly little sentence level errors taken care of or pointed out so that you don't have to work so hard. So you can pay attention to the ideas, the concepts, and that you're saying exactly what you want to say. However, there is no better way of making certain that what you're giving people is what you want to say than going over it yourself multiple times. Do it at least two or three times, and find ways to trick your brain into no longer glossing over any problems it may have created or you may be used to. Read sentences out loud. I often sometimes will read backward through paper. If it's long paper, I will start with the last sentence and then the sentence before that and sentence before that. What that does is it makes me hyper aware of any errors. So you may try to do something like that as well. But these tools will help you a lot. So in the assignments, you have four assignments. You have a skills activity, also known as a practice activity, reflection forum. You'll have a pre-writing, which is from guided questions from the book for the process analysis and the process analysis essay. So the first of these, as you just saw, is the practice assignment. This just helps you show what skills you already have or what your understanding is of these steps. So this is taken from the chapter on drafting an essay, and there are four main parts that the chapter discusses of an essay: title, introduction, body, and conclusion. And what I want you to do is give me, in a few sentences, as you see here in the example, a few sentences what you think this part of the essay is for, what do you think how it should be used, and how you will be using it, and then give me a brief example of something you want to do with it. It doesn't have to be a full here's what my body is going to look like. I just want to be focusing on these things in the body. So a few sentences for each of these will be sufficient. The next obviously is a pre-writing analysis essay, which is the guided writing. This comes from the book. This comes from the book on page 343. You'll be reading this entire chapter, but this pre-writing assignment is very useful. So you'll be doing a process analysis essay, which is a way to either describe how to do a thing or how something works. And so you're going to choose that kind of topic, and you're going to go through these steps to prepare. You do not have to write at length for here. You just need to write some sentences to explain your thinking here. And again, I usually am favor two or three sentences for each of these steps, but how you work, or they can be bullet points, whatever. They just need to be show thoughtfulness as you go about creating the essay. So, for example, choose your topic, what kind of topic, and why is it useful and interesting. Answer the question, so what? So why should I care? And so then again, who are you trying to talk to? Who is your audience, and why should you do this kind of work? What is it you need to explain to them? What is it you think they should already know? That sort of thing. What's the subject? What kind of details are you going to need to gather before you can explain it? That sort of stuff. You can also figure out ways to explain things thoughtfully What does it feel like? What does it sound like? What is it like to do things? That sort of stuff. Draft a thesis statement. Remember, a thesis statement not only mentions the topic, but also mentions something about that. So this is why you would care about this topic, why an audience member would care, or what they may want to do with it, or that sort of thing. And of course, how do you want to organize it? What do you think is the most important thing to talk about first? What do you think is next, the most important thing? Should it go in order of chronology? If it's a how to do, that probably should, but you need to identify why that is the case. And so that takes you through the pre-writing. You should try to do this a couple of days before the essay is finished, even though you're going to be handing it in next Sunday along with the essay. So there is that. Um, there's also a practice quiz, which helps show that you've done the readings. These should only need to be a sentence or two each in answers. They do need to be complete sentences, and they need to be somewhat thoughtful. You can use the book to help answer these, but please do not take your answers directly from the book. So, in your own words, explain what these things are and what they mean. And finally, the process analysis essay. Process analysis, as I've said, is an extremely common genre online and in business writing. Most blogs, whether they're official company blogs or marketing blogs, that sort of thing, have something like this. There are thousands of these out there. You've read them so many times you probably don't even notice it. Or if you haven't read them, you've heard them in podcasts or you've seen them on YouTube videos. So here's an example of this is a how-to and a process analysis, how to delete your Facebook account. And it gives you some background of why you would want to do this. It even gives you links to help explain what the reasons are so that people can look for themselves whether this is something they want to do. And then it goes through several steps, including explanations, graphical steps, all sorts of things that will help you understand the process necessary. Another example is how things work. And so this is a brief explanation that leads to a podcast of how emojis work. So gives you basic background. And then if you really want, you can listen to the podcast, which will explain in more detail. And again, this is a multimodal format. You've seen this on YouTube, you've seen this on podcasts. And so think in terms of that sort of thing. You may at some point be asked to write these kinds of essays or blog posts or whatever for whatever job you may have. All right, so those are the assignments in general. Hopefully, I pointed out things you should be aware of. If you have any questions about these assignments, feel free to ask them. I will see you later.